It is pretty fun to learn new things and improve our knowledge and our skills, and sometimes the word gets out. And that's what's happening today with you and I as well regarding dynamic ARP inspection. Bob has heard that we've been practicing and working with it, and he has asked you and I once again to come to his office and to help them implement dynamic ARP inspection to better protect their network. So let's take a look at Bob's plan, and then we'll go to the lab. So we meet with Bob, and this is what he tells us, that we're going to be doing some work in Florida, and they want to set up dynamic ARP inspection on VLAN 40 in Florida. So this port right here, gig 0/2 coming off the Florida switch, is already assigned to VLAN 40, but what we would want to do is we would want to verify, once we get there, verify that that's the case. So don't take too much for granted. We'll want to verify that this port is in VLAN 40. And then Bob also wants us to trust port 3/3, which is the port that leads off to the router. And one of the reasons for that, of course, is because this IP address on gig 1/0 on the router was not dynamically assigned via DHCP. So this is our task on the Florida switch, is to enable DAI on VLAN 40, trust port 3/3, and then verify that it's working. And we have PC2, which is a virtual PC, which is sitting off of that port that we can use for testing. So if you're logged on currently to a PC, click on the link for the virtual lab, bring the lab up, and together we'll implement the solution for Bob in the Florida portion of his network. All right, so here at the switch, let's do some verification first. Let's do a show VLAN brief, just to make sure that we have VLAN 40, and we do. Great, there's VLAN 40, and gig 0/2 is an access port in that VLAN. That's great. Let's also do a show CDP neighbor, just to verify that router 3 really is hanging off gig 3.3, which it is. Fantastic. And let's set that up as a trusted DAI port. So to do that, we'll go into interface configuration mode for interface gig 3/3, and we'll do IP ARP inspection and the keyword trust, and press enter. That part is done. We'll type exit, and then we'll enable IP ARP inspection for VLAN 40. So to do that, we'll do IP ARP inspection, VLAN 40, press enter. Then we'll do a show IP ARP inspection for VLAN 40 just to make sure it's enabled. There we go. So it's enabled and it's active. That's fantastic. And if we looked at the DHCP snooping bindings, we could do a show IP DHCP snooping with the binding. And so we have in VLAN 40 this guy right here ending in 666800 with the IP address of 101. And that is the Florida PC2. And there's a tab for that one right here. So if we go to this PC and we do a show IP, this is a virtual machine. So here's the IP address 10.16.22.101, and if we did a ping to, let's go to 10.16.22.7, that's its default gateway, and that works, great. And one way we can test this is what if we took this PC2, and we gave it a different IP address that was static? If we gave it a static address that was different, then the switch wouldn't have a layer 3 to layer 2 mapping, and then if it tried to do an ARP, the switch would not be able to verify it. And as a result, the switch should drop it right there on port gig 0/2. So let's do that next. So we'll go back to our admin PC, and we'll go to the tab for the Florida PC2, that virtual machine, and let's just give it a different IP address. So currently it's got 101. Let's give it like 200. So IP on this virtual machine, the syntax is 10.16.22. And let's go ahead and use 200. And you can throw on a mask or not. It doesn't really matter because we're only going to use this temporarily. So it believes its IP address is 10.16.22.200 with a 24-bit mask. And now if we try to do a ping to 10. Let's see, I can just use the up arrow key a few times. Ping 10.16.22.7. That's not so happy. Why is that? Well, these virtual machines have a very short ARP cache. So when we did a ping for 10.16.22.7, in the background there was an ARP request, but the switch couldn't verify it because there's no entry in the DHCP snooping table. There's no ARP ACL. So we go back to the switch. Sure enough, all of those ARPs were not allowed because they couldn't be verified. The layer 3 to layer 2 mapping couldn't be verified by the switch with dynamic ARP inspection, so it dropped them. If we went back to our client and we got an IP address again via DHCP, we'll do an IP DHCP, press enter, and it's going to visually show us it going through the discover offer request process. If we went back to the switch, that entry is going to be in the snooping table. So we do a show IP DHCP snooping binding. There's the IP address that we just got. And now if we go back to the client and we hit the up arrow key a couple times and do a ping again, it's going to fly because the ARP is congruent now with what the switch can verify. So let's do a quick check and make sure we got everything. We enabled dynamic ARP inspection on VLAN 40. We trusted this port right here, and we verified it's working by statically configuring an IP address. And then when it sent an ARP, it was blocked because the switch couldn't verify it, and that verifies it is working. Then we set this client back as a DHCP client. So regardless of which IP address it got from the DHCP server, the switch would learn about that from the binding table and be able to verify ARP messages in the future coming in on port 0/2. So my question is, how did you do? If you have done this lab with me, or if you've done it on your own physical gear, or in a simulator or emulator, I want you to give yourself another 10 points in our journey towards 100, which represents applying the skills we're learning to networks. And here's the cool thing. The more we practice and the more we get experience in doing these commands and verifying that they work, the better we are going to be in both supporting and implementing these types of solutions in production networks. And that's our goal, is to bring value to our employers and our customers by being able to do those things, including security-related tasks that are going to help improve the security posture of their networks. So thanks for joining me. I had a lot of fun. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.